Michael sat alone in his home office, the room dimly lit by the soft glow of his computer screen. The rhythmic hum of the house was punctuated by the occasional creak of the floorboards, but the silence felt oppressive tonight. A meticulous entrepreneur, he prided himself on knowing every detail about his business, Summit Ventures, a technology consultancy that had grown into a multi-million-dollar enterprise under his guidance. But something was off. The financial reports didn't add up. Subtle discrepancies, small enough to evade casual scrutiny but glaring to Michael's trained eye, had begun to emerge over the past 3 months. Vendor invoices that seemed inflated, unapproved withdrawals flagged as business expenses, and contracts that appeared legitimate until he traced the signatures. His gut told him these weren't mistakes, but calculated moves to siphon money out of his company. He leaned forward, pulling up the encrypted emails he'd decrypted earlier that evening. The chain was damning, filled with instructions between Emily, his rebellious 19-year-old daughter, and an email address linked to Greg Harrington, his most vicious rival in the tech industry. The subject lines, payment routing, data upload, sent his pulse racing. His hands clenched the armrests as he read the latest exchange. Greg, make sure the files are uploaded before your dad's weekly briefing. The delays are costing us leverage. Emily, don't worry, Mom says he'll be too distracted to notice. It was a punch to the gut. Vanessa, his wife of 22 years, whom he had once believed was his anchor, was part of this. She was not only aware, but was actively encouraging their daughter's betrayal to cover her affair with Greg. Michael closed his eyes, the weight of this double-edged treachery pressing against his chest. For years, he had built a life that revolved around his family, giving them everything, the sprawling estate, the vacations, the trust funds. And now, the very people he had sacrificed for were orchestrating his downfall. The question clawed at his mind, stark and unrelenting. Why? As he stared at the damning evidence on his screen, one thing became clear. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a coup. A betrayal rooted in greed and ambition, one that threatened to destroy not just his company, but everything he held dear. For now, Michael wouldn't confront them. Instead, he'd gather more evidence, and when the moment was right, he'd dismantle their plan piece by piece. Michael's fingers hovered over the keyboard, a momentary hesitation before he delved deeper into the betrayal festering in his home. He navigated through his company's internal systems, decrypting additional files Emily had accessed and shared. The trail led to critical project proposals, confidential strategy plans, and even intellectual property. Documents Greg could weaponize to cripple Summit Ventures. A sharp knock at the door startled him. Vanessa's voice followed, smooth and unbothered. "Still working, honey. Come to bed. You need rest." "I'll finish up soon," he replied, his voice calm, though his heart hammered in his chest. Her silhouette lingered outside the frosted glass door, and for a moment he wondered if she suspected anything. Finally he retreated, her heels clicking softly down the hallway. Once alone, Michael opened the final folder Greg had requested from Emily. It contained projections for a highly confidential AI initiative, a venture poised to revolutionize medical diagnostics. The implications hit him hard. If this information reached Greg, the project would be dead in the water, and Summit Ventures would lose years of research and millions in potential revenue. He leaned back, letting the chair creak beneath him. How could his daughter, his flesh and blood, enable such treachery? Emily had always been rebellious, but he chalked it up to youthful defiance, skipping classes, dating the wrong boys, flaunting her privilege without gratitude. Never in his wildest dreams did he think her rebellion would extend to aligning with a man like Greg. Shifting gears, Michael accessed the family's shared cloud storage. It was here he uncovered personal messages exchanged between Emily and Vanessa, hidden under innocuous folder names like recipes and vacation photos. The threads cut deeper than any spreadsheet could. Vanessa, stay calm, sweetie. Your father won't realize anything. Just do as Greg says and we'll all be fine. Oh, Emily, it's so stressful hiding this. Are you sure Greg isn't just using us? Vanessa, he loves me. This is for all of us. You'll understand one day. Michael's jaw tightened as he processed the messages. Not only had Vanessa orchestrated this betrayal, but she had drawn Emily into it with promises of family unity. Was it greed, resentment, apathy? The Vanessa he married, the one who once shared his vision of building a life together, felt like a stranger. Yet, buried within Emily's words, Michael sensed doubt. His daughter wasn't entirely blind to the manipulation, and that sliver of uncertainty gave him pause. He wasn't ready to forgive her, far from it, but he tucked away the observation for later. A noise pulled his attention. Soft footsteps echoed in the hallway outside his office. Instinctively, Michael minimized the screen and switched to a bland financial report. Seconds later, the door creaked open. Emily stood there, her expression unreadable. "Can't sleep?" Michael asked, keeping his tone neutral. "I needed some water," she replied, her eyes darting around the room. Was she checking for signs of his discovery? Or was guilt weighing on her conscience? "Good night, then," Michael said, watching her carefully as she left. When she disappeared, Michael returned to his computer. A new resolve settled over him. His wife and daughter had betrayed him, but they underestimated one thing. Michael's patience was as formidable as his ambition. He would let them play their game, let them think they were winning, and then he'd strike. The next evening, Michael sat at the head of the dining table, a glass of red wine in hand. Across from him, Vanessa gracefully cut into her salmon, the picture of composure. Emily sat between them, picking at her food while scrolling through her phone. The tableau could have been a postcard of domestic tranquility, but Michael saw the fractures beneath it. He had spent the day piecing together the evidence, replaying emails, messages, and financial records in his mind. He knew this dinner, like so many others, was a carefully constructed act. The question now was how long they could maintain it. "Emily," he began, setting down his glass, "how's your internship going?" Emily glanced up, startled, before masking her reaction with a practiced smile. "It's fine, just a lot of busy work." "Busy work," Michael repeated, his tone light but probing. "That's not what I heard. I thought Greg had you handling some pretty important tasks." Vanessa's fork froze mid-air, the slight pause betraying her tension. Emily shifted in her seat, her gaze flitting toward her mother before returning to Michael. Yeah, some data stuff, nothing major." Michael leaned back, swirling the wine in his glass. "Data stuff? Ha, that's interesting. I was under the impression you were deeply involved in some strategic initiatives. Greg must really trust you?" Vanessa interjected smoothly, her tone laced with casual dismissal. "Greg values talent," Emily's proving herself. "Something we should be proud of, don't you think?" Michael met her eyes, holding her gaze for a moment too long. "Oh, I'm very proud. It's rare for someone so young to have such significant responsibilities." The room fell into a strained silence. Michael allowed it to stretch, watching as Emily fidgeted with her fork and Vanessa reached for her wineglass with slightly trembling fingers. They were unraveling, just as he anticipated. The dinner continued in awkward spurts of conversation until Michael spoke again, his voice tinged with curiosity. "Vanessa, have you been to Greg's office recently? I heard it's quite impressive. Top floor, panoramic views, the works." Vanessa's hand stilled. I've seen it once or twice, yes, she replied, carefully neutral. Michael smiled faintly. I'm sure it's a good space for collaboration. Her mask of calm slipped for a split second, a flicker of something, fear, crossing her face. Emily, sensing the undercurrent, abruptly stood. I've got homework, she muttered, disappearing from the room before anyone could stop her. Michael let the silence return, heavier this time. Vanessa, clearly uneasy, began clearing the table. I don't know what you're trying to imply, she said finally, her back to him. He stood, walking toward her with deliberate steps. Oh, I'm not implying anything yet. He placed his hand on her shoulder, a gesture light but pointed. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Vanessa. Michael left the room, satisfaction blooming in his chest. The cracks were widening, and the threads of their deceit were beginning to fray. Soon, they wouldn't be able to hide behind their masks at all. The next morning, Michael awoke with a sense of cold determination. Today would be the day the facade shattered. He spent hours meticulously reviewing the files one last time. By now he had everything he needed: proof of the embezzlement, the leaked corporate strategies, and the messages between Vanessa, Emily, and Greg. Each piece fit seamlessly into a puzzle of betrayal, forming a picture so damning it left no room for explanation or denial. The moment came at dinner. Michael had insisted everyone be present. Vanessa's polite curiosity and Emily's obvious discomfort made it clear neither suspected what was coming. As the table filled with the aroma of Vanessa's lasagna, a rare attempt at domesticity, Michael bided his time, casually making small talk. The tension built as he let them believe it was just another evening. When the plates were nearly empty, he set down his fork, folded his hands, and leaned forward. I've been reviewing some interesting documents this week, he began, his voice calm but icy, and it seems I've come across something unusual. Vanessa raised a brow, playing the part of the concerned spouse. What kind of documents? Michael's lips curved into a tight smile. Oh, financial records mostly. You know, the kind that show where my company's money is going? Emily froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Vanessa's expression barely faltered, but Michael saw the tightening at the corners of her eyes. Michael, is this about the business? Vanessa asked smoothly, feigning interest. You've been so stressed lately. Maybe you're over-analyzing. He let her words hang in the air before answering, his tone sharpened like a blade. Over-analyzing? Funny. Was I over-analyzing when I discovered an email from Greg asking our daughter to upload confidential files to his private server? Emily gasped, the blood draining from her face. Dad, I can explain. Explain? Michael's voice rose, cutting through the room like a whip. Explain how my own daughter, my flesh and blood, has been actively sabotaging the company I built from the ground up? Or how my wife, the woman I've trusted for over 2 decades, encouraged her to do it? Vanessa's mask cracked. Michael, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, he snapped, turning his gaze on her. I understand you've been using Emily to cover your affair with Greg. I understand you've been funneling company funds into his ventures. And I understand you've destroyed any chance of redemption. Vanessa stood, her chair scraping against the floor. You've been spying on us. How dare you invade my privacy? Michael barked a cold laugh. Privacy? Don't talk to me about privacy when you've violated the sanctity of this family. Emily burst into tears, but Michael barely looked at her. His focus was on Vanessa, who now stared at him with a mix of anger and panic. I've already contacted my lawyer, he said, his voice steady. The divorce papers are being drafted. You'll be hearing from them soon. The words hung heavy in the air as he pushed back his chair. Enjoy your dinner. It's the last one we'll have as a family. Michael left the room, their stunned silence following him. He felt no satisfaction, only the weight of what came next. The house was quiet now, an eerie contrast to the explosion of anger and tears that had unfolded earlier. Michael sat in his home office, a glass of whiskey untouched on the desk, and stared out the window at the moonlit garden. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The weight of betrayal still lingered, but with it came clarity. This wasn't the end of his story, only the beginning of his reclamation. The first call he made was to his legal team. By the next morning, Vanessa would be served divorce papers, along with an injunction freezing her access to any marital or corporate accounts. He had made sure to document every transaction, every questionable move she had made. Her attempts to claim innocence would crumble under the evidence. The second call went to Summit Ventures' board of directors. He laid out the situation in stark, unvarnished terms. Internal sabotage, deliberate leaks, and external interference by Greg Harrington. The board, shocked but trusting Michael's leadership, immediately granted him full authority to address the crisis. A cybersecurity team was mobilized to audit all systems, ensuring no further damage could be done. But Michael wasn't done. He spent hours strategizing, leveraging his network and resources. Greg would not walk away unscathed. Using the information he had gathered, Michael connected with his contacts in the tech industry to discreetly spread the word about Greg's underhanded tactics. Deals Greg had been counting on began to evaporate, and whispers of scandal followed him into every boardroom. Emily, however, was a different story. Michael's anger toward her was tempered by her youth and evident remorse. The next day, she timidly knocked on his office door. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "Dad," she said quietly, stepping inside. "Can we talk?" Michael didn't look up from his computer. "You've said enough." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she pressed on. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't know what I was doing." He finally turned to her, his gaze cold and piercing. "You knew exactly what you were doing, Emily. Maybe you didn't understand the full consequences, but you made choices that nearly destroyed everything I've worked for." Her lip trembled. Mum said it was for us, that you didn't care about the family." Michael's jaw tightened. "And you believed her?" He paused, his voice softening just slightly. "I care about this family more than you'll ever know, but trust has to go both ways. You broke mine." She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. "What can I do to fix it?" Michael regarded her for a long moment. "You can start by owning up to what you've done, and then you'll need to earn my trust back, if that's even possible." Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks, and left the room. Michael exhaled slowly, the moment leaving a hollow ache in his chest. By the end of the week, Vanessa was gone from the house, her belongings packed and moved. Greg's company was in shambles, his reputation tarnished, and Michael? He stood at the helm of Summit Ventures, rebuilding what they had tried to destroy. His trust had been shattered, his family fractured, but Michael was still standing, and that, he realized, was the ultimate victory.